All right, folks, we are live on this Sunday evening. It looks like we are live, in fact, so we're going to go ahead and get started. But of course, before I begin, make sure that you like this stream down below and hit subscribe. Subscribe if you have not done so already. All you need is a Gmail account, otherwise, it is completely free. Some things that are not free, however, if you want to support the channel a little further, we do have courses on the books with Velotropa 24 Ventures. Links are all down in the description of the stream. In case you want to learn a little bit more about the science behind meteorology and all that goes into it, maybe you're thinking about studying it as a career path, those are great courses. They're really not that expensive when you consider the cost of your average class at a college or university. So it's a great way to go ahead and get your feet wet and get a good understanding of, is a career in meteorology really right for you, before you go and spend tens of thousands of dollars on it. That being said, we've also got some other promotions going on. MyPatriotSupply is running some specials this month, especially people gearing up for winter, as we're starting to see now these Arctic shots come through. Not too significant yet, but definitely in the next couple of weeks we're going to be seeing some serious temperature knockdowns rolling through the country, and we're going to get into that in just a little while. But first, we have to talk about Major Hurricane Melissa, which is once again strengthening as we speak here down in the Caribbean Sea. So here's the latest. Obviously, I don't have a really thought out PowerPoint put together for this, but just kind of doing this on the fly tonight. But looking at that barometric pressure, 933 millibars, so very low on the pressure. Not surprising given its intensity, as well as 145 mile per hour sustained winds, and it is strengthening still. We will likely see Category 5 status before everything is all said and done here, before we see a landfall tomorrow in Jamaica. So very concerning situation for both the island as well as some other locations, which we're going to talk about here. Because obviously the big focus is on Jamaica. Obviously you've got this, basically this threat of a Category 5 landfall tomorrow on the island. Those hour bands starting to roll in this evening. But what no one talks about is you also have very significant rainfall potential, not just in Jamaica, where you do see spots where we do have the potential for up to 40 inches of rain. But you also see this secondary localized maximum here there in eastern Cuba as the storm starts to pull northward, okay? This secondary maximum where you could have 16 to 20 inches of rain. And the reason for that is because eastern Cuba, if you are not familiar with eastern Cuba and its terrain, it is very mountainous over here in eastern Cuba. And so this is basically what you're seeing here is you're basically having another Hurricane Helene type of situation set up, this time in the mountains of Cuba, okay? But similar thing, you've got the orographic lifting and all of that good stuff. And of course, if you want to learn a little bit more about what that is and the science behind that, again, take those courses. Link is down in the description. Whoops. But we don't have time to get into it tonight. I want to just hit the main points so that everyone that lives in these areas, while you can still potentially do something about this, get out of harm's way. Especially, look, if you live in Jamaica or staying there for whatever reason, or eastern Cuba, anywhere, even the Bahamas, get out at all costs. Get out. Take a boat, take a plane, get out, escape, okay? This is a very dangerous storm. This is a deadly storm. You are not likely to survive, especially in Jamaica, but also those mountainous parts of eastern Cuba are going to be very dangerous up there as well in the coming days. You are not likely to survive if you stay. I'm just going to say that right now. You are not likely to make it past tomorrow if you are in Jamaica or in eastern Cuba. And I don't know how else to put it. There's no nice way to put it, okay? That's all there is to it. You are not likely to survive the storm. We are talking about catastrophic impacts. We are talking about most of the island will probably be leveled by Tuesday, okay, especially also in eastern Cuba, okay. We're going to see landslides, mudslides going down those mountains, okay. Very catastrophic damage there as well, similar to what we saw again with Hurricane Helene up in the Appalachian Mountains. It's the same sort of impacts where you have all this moisture basically going up these mountains, and it just and the mountains just squeeze all that out in the form of rainfall, and you end up with very dangerous conditions. Okay, you see rainfall amounts much higher than you would otherwise see them just in a flat terrain area. Okay, and so that becomes very deadly. With that being said, we also, like I said, we have impacts coming for the Bahamas as well. Let me pull up the forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center. And obviously, you see the hurricane warnings in red for the entire island of Jamaica, as well as much of eastern Cuba as the storm comes in on Wednesday morning there. And also tropical storm warnings up for other areas that will be affected by the outer bands of Hurricane Melissa. You also even see a hurricane watch issued for parts of the Western Dominican Republic there. And you see that blue shading indicating the tropical storm warning in effect, but there is also that hurricane watch in effect. You can see the pink outline there, and that's of course the off chance that either one of two things happen. This hurricane force wind field down here expands, which is certainly possible, especially as it gets over these mountains. Okay, you do have the potential for the mountains to also start to disrupt the wind field. That happens a lot, especially when these storms pass over Cuba. You can have you can have a tiny storm, and then it passes over these mountains, and the mountains basically, the wind hits the mountains, and the mountains disrupt that overall wind circulation and actually spreads it out to where, yes, you have a little bit weaker of a storm in terms of its maximum intensity, but it is a monster in terms of its actual diameter, and that becomes a major problem. So that could be the potential there, as well as you may see ever so slight shift, because again, especially with this being having a turn to the northeast like that, obviously you've got some systems starting to push it that way, and so all it takes is that system pushing it, basically the jet stream and the wind shear pushing it just a little bit farther to the east, like let's say like that, and now, especially right there on the western tip, now you're under the gun for those hurricane force winds. So that's really all it takes there, is just either of those two events or a combination of the two, and now like I said, you're under the gun there for those hurricane force winds. That being said, as we go throughout the day on Wednesday, we start to see the storm actually pick up motion slowly, but it does, and then we see it across the Bahamas, and that happens Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. And then we also see up here in Bermuda, okay, as a weakened storm, okay, as a weakened, no longer a major hurricane, but as a weakened, slightly hurricane, still a dangerous hurricane, okay. You do see another close pass, perhaps a direct hit there on the island of Bermuda, and that of course comes just mere weeks after what we dealt with there with Hurricane Imelda, and also the outer bands of I can't think of right off the top of my head the one before that, but that had a few outskirts of it affected the island. But definitely, Hurricane Imelda was the main one, came in as a Category 2, just barely missed the island, but still nonetheless brought hurricane force wind gusts and did some damage there as well. Now we have the threat of Melissa coming in again. So here we are, 2 p.m. Thursday. Again, these times are all Eastern time. 2 p.m. Thursday, and then 2 p.m. Friday up here. So you could kind of average that out. Say this is probably about midnight or 2 a.m. or so there in Bermuda. Okay, and that's where you start to see those worst impacts again. Hurricane force wind gusts, as well as storm surge as well as power outages and damage. Okay, so that's the situation there. With that being said, I wanted to go through the models really quick, just to really drive home a point here, because some of the earlier runs of the GFS a few days ago had kind of cast into doubt the confidence that we were looking at a direct strike on Jamaica as a Category 5 storm. There were some models that actually we were kind of hoping we would see the storm actually push off, maybe to miss the island just barely to the east, to where maybe those strongest winds would stay just offshore. Unfortunately, those were earlier model runs, and now, if we take it through the cycle, now we're looking at pretty much a direct hit there. You can see the island is basically covered up by all those isobars, just to show you how strong the pressure gradient is there. But pretty much a direct strike. It's going to squarely hit the island of Jamaica, and it's even looking like we might actually see more impacts on the western half of the island as opposed to the eastern half. But of course, we're going to see, obviously, on that, the rest of the island is still going to be in that front right quadrant, which is not where you want to be with these storms. So nonetheless, very catastrophic impacts throughout the island likely. Very, very devastating storm surges, winds. You're going to see wind gusts probably clocking close to 200 miles per hour on the island in places, and that's going to you're talking about buildings, like I said, buildings leveled. Just a very catastrophic situation, a very such a crisis situation coming. You can see it now, and hopefully everyone that was on the island has been able to leave, or you better have a very, very fortified house, is all I can say with this. You better have a very, very fortified structure that you are staying in if you're still on the island, because like I said earlier, if you're there, you are not likely to survive. I'm just saying that, so if you can get out, leave. And also, as we go through the coming days, so again, this is the GFS, and it, of course, takes it through the eastern tip of Cuba, comes off, and you do again see a little bit of that expansion in size again after those mountains disrupt the circulation a little bit, spread out, crosses the Bahamas, and GFS. This right here, this is where Bermuda is. Now, it actually this run of the GFS actually has the storm actually missing to the east of Bermuda. So that would obviously be best case scenario for Bermuda, is if the jet stream, obviously, and other steering forces like the Bermuda High, Azores High, if some of those steering factors can push the storm just a little bit farther off to the east than what the current track from the National Hurricane Center suggests, that obviously that would be relief for Bermuda, as they're already cleaning up from one powerful hurricane. They don't necessarily need to be hit by another one. So that's the GFS for you right there. I'm go ahead and pull up the Euro model, and we'll backtrack this. So again, here's our storm. Here's Melissa down here, and you can see as we go through the next few cycles, the Euro has been a little bit more, a little bit, and this has been the case for several runs of it, has been more on the side of this storm is really going to stall just south of Jamaica, which is unfortunate for a few reasons if this comes true. One, it's gonna, all those hour bands are gonna come ashore and just dump more and more rain, okay, leading up to the storm coming ashore tomorrow, and then also it also gives the storm more time to strengthen if it stays over the water longer. Now, sometimes you may see, especially if it's over shallower waters, that could also be a double-edged sword. It could weaken it a little bit too. We never know. Nonetheless, very catastrophic storm. Even if it drops a little bit before landfall, okay, you're still looking at a very devastating storm. I don't think it's going to do that though. I would assume the worst. If we're having to hedge our bets here, I would assume the worst case scenario with this one. But again, nonetheless, comes ashore, and there it is over the island again. You can barely really even see you barely see the island of Jamaica because of all the isobars on the map there, just packed in there like sardines. So again, talking about just very, and I can even pull up a forecast sounding, just for the heck of it, and you see basically right off the deck, okay, basically 58 mile per hour winds, and that's probably underestimating it, and again, you can see just above that, you see winds quickly climbing into hurricane force territory. So those will be making their way down to the surface as occasional wind gusts, and those are the wind gusts that will be ripping shingles off, ripping siding, ripping buildings apart essentially. Again, as well as the storm surge, as well as the flooding from the rainfall, all that heavy rain coming ashore on that island, just getting dumped. And like I said earlier, the potential for 40 plus inches of rainfall. You're talking about close to 3.5 feet possible on the island in spots. So very dangerous situation. Again, get out if you can. Get out of Jamaica, get out of eastern Cuba. Even if you're like over here on the western tip of the Dominican Republic over here, get out. Okay, get out. Your life will likely be lost. This is a life or death situation. Leave these locations now. Okay, get out while you still can. I cannot say that enough times. I cannot emphasize that enough times. Your best bet is to leave, or again, if you're on the island of Cuba, okay, if you want to migrate over here, go. If you're staying over here for some reason, if you can get over to the western part of the island, just get out of harm's way is the point. Okay. So that being said. And again, there you see it, makes similar path as we saw in the GFS model. And then, of course, as we go through the coming days. Now, again, remember earlier the GFS actually had it missing to the east. And then this run of the Euro actually has it missing to the west. So you can kind of see where the National Hurricane Center on their track has just kind of split the difference and said, okay, we'll put Bermuda right in the middle, right in the crosshairs of it. That is not necessarily going to be the case, but if you are on the island of Bermuda, you have to be prepared for that Thursday night. Nonetheless, things are going to be more than likely, unless unless that current run of the GFS model is just dead on point with it, completely missing off to the east and really no impacts there at all. Okay, otherwise, there in Bermuda, you need to be prepared for very ugly conditions going into Thursday night. Okay. So that's Melissa for you. Again, just a very deadly situation about to unfold there in many parts of the Caribbean. Now, I want to switch gears here because we also have as we have the tropics still going on, we also are starting to see some mid-latitude interaction in the continental United States. We're starting to see, we kind of had this extension of summer that just it lasted all the way into early October, where you had temperatures basically across the lower 48 soaring into the 80s every day, even well into October, like I said, or at least at the bare minimum well above average. You're talking about upper 70s, low 80s in places in the Great Lakes region of the country, for example. Otherwise, you would typically not see that, especially not continuously. But now the jet stream has started to migrate south. We're starting to see things get a lot more dynamic in the atmosphere. And I want to go back. I'm going to pick a different region. I'm going to go to the CONUS map, because and I'm going to rewind this, because like I said, as all this is going on over off to the east, right, the jet stream is in full swing here. Okay, and that's part of the reason why we're not really seeing these storms are staying off, in the Caribbean. They're going out to sea like that is because, like I said, the jet stream has definitely plunged down south, and we're starting to see these extratropical cyclones come through. So that being said, obviously, and we're actually here at the studio, we're currently dealing with one of these extratropical lows right now, where it's been raining all day. We've even had some tornadoes touch down in places just across the state line in Mississippi. And nothing, I don't think, too devastating, but starting to get into that time of year where we're starting to see our second severe weather season, our fall severe weather season, start to kick in here in the deep south, and that's going to continue. And it's not just going to be in the deep south; it's going to be other locations as well. So going forward, obviously, that system moves off the coast of the Carolinas, but we start to see another one develop, and this actually occurs. Leading up the days, talking about middle of the week next week, late next week, basically leading up to Halloween. And you actually look on the back side of this, you see these blue and red dotted lines here, and you see where this little 540 data point is. That means that everything above that is essentially, not necessarily always the case, but generally speaking, talking about sub-freezing to below freezing temperatures across this region. So we're seeing, in many cases, likely our first frosts across parts of the Dakotas, even Nebraska, Kansas, even as this storm sweeps through the country. Ahead of it, obviously, you see a lot of unsettled weather along where the cold front is. Okay, even places like Oklahoma, and even going all the way down to the Gulf Coast with this one. Very gusty winds, very blustery conditions, and a serious knockdown in temperatures. Okay, we're going to see, for many folks along the Gulf Coast. Okay, we're going to see temperatures hitting the mid to low 40s, even potentially for the first time so far this year. So that's something to watch out for. And again, first frosts for much of this country. Okay, not necessarily below freezing, but definitely down there in that range of getting down below 40 degrees, and also. And keep in mind the wind chill behind, this is not just a still 40 degrees. Okay, you've got this massive pressure gradient behind this storm system, and you're going to see this very cold, gusty, northerly wind coming down straight from Canada, bringing all of this Arctic air down into the United States. And that's going to make things feel a lot colder even than that 40 degrees that the thermometer reads. Okay, you're going to see temperatures, you're going to see, I should say, wind chills likely below the freezing mark. Okay, you're going to see wind chills down in the 30s, maybe even 20s in a lot of places on the backside of this cold front. And then, and you also have the potential. I don't think it's really all that pronounced, but of course, with any of these systems, you can't rule it out. You may also see some severe weather, especially if you get a sort of this linear feature develop. You may see some severe thunderstorm warnings and some tornado warnings pop out of this. I don't think the Cape out ahead of it is going to be real particularly high. Yeah, nothing really registering there on that forecast sounding. But we will just have to wait and see. We'll have to see going forward. It also doesn't take a whole lot of instability to get things going in terms of severe weather when you're down here in the deep south. So that'll be something to watch. And again, you can see just this is what is referred to as cold air advection right here, and you can see all these lines packed together like that. That's that brisk northerly wind, and it's taking all of this cold air again. Where all these blue dashed lines are, all this cold air up here coming down from Canada into the Midwest plains, and it's gonna rush it all the way down to the Gulf Coast and really knock down those temperatures. And again, I can pull up a forecast sounding for a place like New Orleans, for example, and you see, well, that was right over Lake Pontchartrain. So let me get a little bit better of a. We'll go just north in a place like Slidell, for example. Okay, there we go. So talking about right off the bat, temperature all the way down to 60. But again, you've got that cold northerly wind at about 20 miles per hour, sustained gusts, much likely to be higher than that, closing in on 30 to 40 miles per hour. So, and it's going to be a very cold wind. Of course, it's transporting all that cold air down from Canada. So it's not really going to, the thermometer might say 60, but it's not going to feel like 60. It's going to feel more like 50 or 45 outside. Okay, it's just, and again, actually the temperature itself ends up plunging down according to the forecast there that the Euro has made, down to 53, and again, still that very gusty northwesterly wind, making it feel like the temperature is actually in the 40s there. And that, again, like I said, that's just north of New Orleans there, just north of the lake. Okay, so that's gonna be felt across the deep south here. And I can go into a place like, let's say, Nebraska, central Nebraska up here. Again, take a forecast sounding, and looky there. Okay, we're waking up Wednesday morning. And we're waking up Wednesday morning to a temperature of 36 degrees Fahrenheit with a gusty northwesterly wind coming down, basically transporting all of that cold air down from Canada, like I said earlier. So you're going to see wind chills definitely plunging well into the 20s up there. So again, very much so, you're going to have to bundle out not even just the jacket in some locations, but also, the big coat. Okay, you're going to need the big coat for this one, because that wind is going to cut right through that thin little jacket you've got. So up there. So definitely got to be prepared for that. So that system comes through. We see that shot of cold air. Things do, good news, things do improve a little bit for Halloween. This system kind of moves away, and you do actually see some of that cold air start to taper off for most of this region here. Okay, now in the Northeast, okay, trick or treating is going to suck to be out there. But for most of the rest of the country, dry conditions, and also temperatures a little bit warmer, just a little bit for Friday night than they were, let's say, Wednesday night, Thursday night. Okay, so things improving just a little bit, making it a little bit more pleasant to be outside. And we'll go ahead and pull up an example. So this is about the time most folks who are going to be out trick-or-treating taking place around St. Louis. Okay, again, 49 degrees, not as bad as what we'll be seeing in the days prior. Definitely not as strong of a blustery wind either, making it feel worse than the temperature on the thermometer either. So like I said, things improve substantially, even down here on the Gulf Coast in a place like where our studio is down here in Mobile. Okay, talking about temperatures around 56 on Friday night. So, again, trick-or-treating not as bad for most of the country, unless, of course, basically you're either in the eastern Great Lakes, Northeast, or perhaps in the Pacific Northwest out here as this other system starts to roll on shore. So that occurs, and then I'm actually going to pull up the GFS so we can go a little bit farther out. And again, we're kind of extending the range of accuracy when we go much farther than this. So just take these forecasts with a little bit of a grain of salt. Things can change, but you start to see these other systems roll through. You see that one roll through again. Temperature drop. That would be early next week for parts of the upper Midwest, and then we also see another one. This is obviously here. Now again, we're talking about about 2 weeks in advance. So again, take this with a grain of salt. But we likely will see some kind of another low pressure system develop, and this is again where you could start to see along this cold front, you could see severe weather developing. And let's go ahead and just for the heck of it, take a forecast sounding. Well, again, not too impressive on the Cape profile, but again, take all these forecasts with a grain of salt. Things can change a lot between now and then, so the potential for severe weather with something like this is still there. And again, behind it, you're going to see temperatures dropping. So, we're starting to see this temperature roller coaster kick in. It's no longer summer, okay? We're no longer in that summer pattern. We're in the fall pattern now. We're starting to see like I said, that temperature roller coaster really kick in for much of the country, including on the Gulf Coast. We're going to start to see that down here as well, to where there's really, aside from South Florida, you're really not going to have much of an escape from it. You're going to start to see mornings, especially where the winds are going to be pretty. You're going to have very gusty winds coming down, and not the nicest of conditions waking up to in the morning, but behind some of these fronts. But that's pretty much the latest. If you have any questions, you can drop questions in the chat down below. We've got a couple of viewers in here, so thank you for watching, of course. And like I said, make sure that you like the stream, subscribe if you have not done so already. Subscribe, share the stream. You can also follow me on Rumble, and again, check out the links down in the description of the video. There are plenty of places where you can enroll in courses. You can enroll in which those courses I teach, by the way. You can go shopping, help support the channel. Many different places you can go shopping, get stuff that you need or want, and it also benefits this channel. But all that being said, if nobody has any questions, I've pretty much wrapped up what I was going to say here. So everybody in Jamaica and other areas, eastern Cuba, the other parts of the Caribbean, as well as Bermuda, make sure that you stay safe and get out of harm's way if necessary. Again, talking about very, very deadly and dangerous conditions there. But with that being said, that's going to do it for the stream. Everyone have a good night, stay safe, and pray for everyone that is in the path of Hurricane Melissa.